Welcome to the Miracle Mansion podcast. My name is Marcus True. I'm head of treatment and counselling at Broadway Lodge. I have the wonderful, fabulously good-looking David Bowman here with me today. But before we start this podcast, where we just chop it up about addiction, life and recovery, please like and subscribe. Shona, if you're watching this if you ever watch this podcast, apologies, David is using your cutter, but I promise you we'll wash it after.
Promises he'll wash it.
Cool. David, welcome to Broadway Lodge.
Thank you.
I've been wanting to get you up here. I've been thinking about the type of people that have influenced me here unknowingly, and you were one of them. And I think we've spoken about this before, but I just want you just to, I'll tell you how you influenced me, but I just want you just to tell me about your life, your journey to Broadway Lodge, what you've been doing since, what it was like for you at Broadway Lodge, etc., etc.
Okay, so I grew up I was born in 1967, so...
Looking good.
Thank you. I was born in 1967 to Irish and Scottish parents, two families that were polar opposites, both involved in crime, but as far as values go, they had different sets of values.
Okay.
And my dad's family were really staunch, family-orientated people.
Cool.
And I love some members of my mum's family. I want to make that clear. I love my mum, and I love a lot of the members of that family. But there were some family members that I can't say the same about.
Okay.
I'm being really...
That's honest, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's the first time I've been able to be honest.
Right.
This Miracle Mansion has given me that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when they went to prison, like I was 3 years old, they went to prison under violent circumstances. The police arrested my dad, and really violently. I didn't know they were police. They were on the run in Saltley in Birmingham.
Right, okay.
Multicultural area, predominantly Asian, but other cultures there.
Okay.
Never felt out of place.
Right.
Until that day that they got arrested.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't ever feel comfortable after that.
All right.
What I seen instilled a lot of fear in me.
Right.
Then we went down a police station. I grabbed the copper's leg, associating the uniform with safety, and he booted me off him. Let's get this little bastard out of here. Okay. And that sent me into shock. And my nan and granddad on my dad's side come and got me from the police station and went to live with them. Okay. And I didn't see my mum and dad for a few years. And that was the start of, prior to that, my life had been amazing, lovely. They loved their kids, my mum and dad. My mum was a loving person. My dad was, family orientated, like I said.
Cool.
And I kept asking my nan and granddad, where's my mum and dad? Do you know what I mean? It was a normal thing to do. But what were they going to say? Oh, they've got nicked, they went to jail, your dad did this, he's gone away for this amount of years, your mum perverted the cause of justice by protecting your dad. So they can't have that conversation with a 3-year-old. So their way of dealing with it was to say, don't ask questions.
Right.
I'll tell you a funny story about the don't ask questions in a minute. Because when this is my dad's side of the family, their values, yeah? Mm-hmm. So we was about 5 or 6, and we'd be in town because they lived just outside Coventry City Centre. Okay. They had property and shops, and they always worked there. They called my granddad Honest John, and all his sons would turned out to be criminals and gangsters. You know what I mean? It's true. Yeah. All my uncles, the police killed my dad's brother. My other uncle escaped from the Green and Winston Green and got murdered while he was on the run. That's the one I was named after. Right. Okay. And. But my dad's dad, they called him Honest John because he wouldn't commit crimes, you know what I mean? He had businesses and that. So one time we're down at the bottom of the street by town. We must have been getting up to no good in town, me and my other mates. And the copper stopped us just as we got cut into the street, an Asian copper. He says, what's your names? And I'd always been told never to speak to police. So I was the last one to answer him, and then, because he shouted at me, I got a bit scared again. I think it was the association of what I'd seen years before. A couple of years before. And I told him my name. And so he must have gone back up the street to tell the parents and my grandparents that we'd been up to no good. And when I got home, my nan says to me, "You've been speaking to the police?" And I went, "No." She said, "You've been speaking to the police?" I said, "Oh, he asked me my name, so I told him my name." No, she said, "How does he know your name then?" I said, "Because I told him." She said, "So you've been speaking to the police?" It was like, don't speak to the police. Do you know what I mean? I don't know where I was going with that story, but I find that story quite funny. Do you know what I mean? But when my mum come out of prison, I wanted to live with her.
Right.
I just wanted my mum.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? And so I went. So she come and got me from school. I remember it. I was daydreaming at the end of the day. They were reading a story.
How long was she away for? Do you remember?
Well, that happened when I was 3, and I was at primary school when she come and got me. So it must have been about 5. So it must have been 2.5 years or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Right.
And in them days, you used to do 2/3 of a sentence.
Yeah.
So maybe she got 3 or 4 years. I don't know.
Okay.
But so she come out after about 2.5 years, and she come and got me from school. I just looked up, I seen her, and that feeling, my mum, you know what I mean? And I went to live with her, and it was the worst decision of my life. It was the worst decision of my life.
Really?
Yeah.
What happened? What's that?
My mum's brother was a paedophile, a violent paedophile, and it wasn't unknown. I love my family, Marcus. I love both sides of my family, and they're like the people that did me the harms are not alive now.
Right. Okay.
But there's people in the family that are connected, and they're good people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've got to be mindful about what I say.
Yeah.
I carried a lot of hate and bitterness around with me for years, and there was that conflict of like, but I love them, but I hate him or what he did. Do you know what I mean? But I love them.
Yeah.
So I don't even want to get too deep into it because I don't want to offend them because some of them are really good people.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like one person in particular is probably the most loyal cousin I've got. You know, like the things that we've done together, the way that he stood by me, and he hasn't got the life experience that I've got with addiction and that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But you know, he. And so I'm mindful about them.
Okay.
You know.
I hear you.
Do you know
I
what
understand.
Yeah, but it was like a house of horrors for me. I had a different name to everyone. And then my mum would come out of prison. I didn't understand addiction, obviously, at that age. I didn't understand addiction until I came here and understand about obsessions and compulsions and how powerful it is. And my mum would come out of prison and she'd say to me, "Go and get a glass of water, son." You know, I'll be all excited to see her. I'll spend a couple of hours with her in the house. The house was overcrowded. It was her mum's house, and lots of her brothers and sisters lived there with their children. It was just rammed. And
sounds chaotic and dysfunctional.
Very, very. And there was crime, shoplifting, and petty crime taking place. And it was like, It was chaos compared to the environment I'd come from my nan's.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I was the centre of their world.
Yeah.
Like, I was named after their firstborn son who'd been murdered. I was the firstborn grandson.
Yeah.
I was there. They doted on me. Do you know what I mean?
So you literally went from this loving, calm environment to like what you call a house of horrors and chaos.
Yeah.
Christ.
Yeah. And then... Yeah. And then there was a lot of... my mum would go back to this story. My mum would come out of prison. I'd be excited to see her.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't the first time she went. When I was living there, she then went to prison while I was there.
What, again?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
She was in and out of prison quite a lot.
Okay.
And so she'd come out and she'd say to me, "Go and get us a glass of water." So I'd go in the kitchen and come out and she'd disappear. And then, and then the other household members would be thinking it was really amusing. I'm a little kid. I was really confused. Do you know what I mean? Like, felt alone, felt scared a lot.
Where did she go?
Well, she'd go out drinking or shoplifting, and sometimes she wouldn't come back.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, right, okay.
Because then she's back in prison again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I was always scared and confused and never felt part of that environment. Do you know what I mean? And when that was happening to me at the hands of her brother, I knew that I could tell my dad, yeah? And I knew this was the conflict going on in my head, and I knew what my dad would do, and he would put a stop to it.
Right.
But I also, even at that young age, was scared that my dad would do something serious and end up back in prison.
Right.
And then I would feel bad and
So
feel
you had
guilty about it.
So you had a proper conflict going on even at that age?
Yeah.
Christ.
And then, like, my mum, I was in and out of youth custody and secure units and care homes from a young age. And then I always looked at my mum and thought, I'll never be like you because of the drink. I loved her dearly. Yeah. And now that I've got, like, I talk about my mum with a smile on my face every day. Do you know what I mean? The same as my dad.
Yeah.
And the thing about my mum, all of her kids loved her.
Yeah.
And none of us had it good.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? She just didn't have very good parenting skills. That's the truth. She loved us though, but she just didn't know how to be a parent.
Right, okay.
And what was I saying there? Yeah, so I was in and out of children's homes and secure units, and then crime. Because I remember, like, in that house, if I didn't go robbing at Christmas, I used to do it every year. There's a co-op over the road, and if I didn't break in and rob tins of Quality Street and stuff like that, there was nothing under the tree. Do you know what I mean? And I used to do that, and that's where the crime and all that started. And I didn't know until I came here that was the start of. I like the way it made me feel as well.
Right,
and I like the affirmation I got from it. I like the validation I got from it.
Yeah.
From the house and from the mates I was doing it with, you know, and I didn't know that was the start of addictive behaviour. It changed the way I felt. I like the adrenaline. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, and that's the start of my addictive behaviour before substances came into my life. Before I brought substances into my life, I always looked at my mum and thought, I'll never be like you. She used to sit there drinking till the end, you know what I mean? She died because of alcohol.
Really? Okay, when did she die? She passed away?
A long time ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What, before you come into treatment?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Oh, right.
20 odd years ago.
Oh, Christ.
Yeah. But this is the thing about my mum, yeah? Like, I've been to some big funerals. My dad's funeral was really big.
Right.
One of my uncle's funeral, who I went to, his was really big. People from different parts of the country, from Ireland, Scotland, Manchester, London.
Yeah.
But my mum's funeral was bigger than all of them.
How comes?
Because everyone loved her. She was just a character. Do you know what I mean? She never had nothing. There weren't no, like, long Mercedes hearses and all that. I'm not saying it was big in that respect. Whereas the other two funerals I just mentioned, they had all that. You know, the big headstones, lots of wreaths and all that. Like, lots of respect, gangster style respect. And my mum, when my mum passed away, God love her, we came from, because I was living with my girlfriend, the mother of my kids, and we drove over from one area which is next to the area where I grew up, where my mum still lived. So we drove from Binley to Stoke Aldermore, and as we got into Stoke Aldermore, I seen streams of people going under the underpass, like under the new road, heading towards Corpus Christi Church. And because I was quite surprised, at how many people I was seeing, I said to Sarah, I said, where are they going? And I wound the window down. I said to my mate Twin, like, and a few others that were with him. There was about 6 or 7 in this group, but there was people before them, there's people after them. And I shouted, Twin, where are you going? He went, they're all suited up. I just didn't fathom it. He said, we're over to see Maeve, Dave. We're going over to see your mum. I went, oh yeah. And then I got, it's like, I don't know why I didn't clock, do you know what I mean? But the church was packed out. It was a really big funeral, do you know what I mean? And that told me how much she was loved. Do you know
definitely.
what I mean? That everyone could see there was a good person there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Cool. So when did the addiction come in? When did
the substances?
When did the substances come in?
Glue when I was 13.
Okay.
skinheads were big in them days.
Yeah, yeah.
The Crombies.
Yeah.
You know, Coventry's a big rude boy scene.
Yeah.
It's where all the specials and that started. I love my city as well, by the way.
You're repping for your city, are you?
Of course, Coventry. I'll start singing the Callum O'Hare song if I get.
Easy, Tiger. Easy.
Yeah. No, but you know, like, so I got into the glue. It was like a phase. It was like a phase with the glue. Everyone I knew was doing it. You know, they used to do it over in the precinct, and I was doing it then with them. And when they stopped, because it was a phase they went through, when they stopped, I used to be sly with it and go and do it on my own.
Okay.
I went to Limerick once, where my mum's, and they'd already had the glue epidemic, right? And you couldn't buy glue for love or money.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I, because of my English accent, this is how manipulative I was. I went up to a store, to a builder's yard, and used my English accent and my manners to manipulate the guy, and acted all innocent. I said I was building a pigeon loft, and he went up and got me. It weren't on the shelves. Do you know what I mean? He went up and got me the glue that I wanted specifically. I had him convinced that I wanted it for like other reasons, not to sniff it. And that's how manipulative I was, even at that age. Do you know what I mean? And when I went to DC when I was 13, and then I went to DC detention centre when I was 14 or 15, and I stopped it. Like, I was reflecting on, I didn't want to be that person. Do you know what I mean? Like, you couldn't go I couldn't go anywhere. People would smell it on me.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, it's not what I wanted to do. So, well, when I came out of detention centre, I stopped it. But then I found cannabis. And I really liked it. I liked listening to Pink Floyd, and, you know, we'd all sit around listening to Pink Floyd. And when we went out for a drink, I was the youngest out of all my friends. And when we went out for a drink, I'd have a bit of speed, you know, for the confidence. So that would be, I'd be having cannabis, speed. This is before ecstasy ever came along.
Yeah.
This is the early 80s.
Yeah.
Cannabis, speed and alcohol. Do you know what I mean? And I smoked cannabis all day, every day, basically. Apart when I was out, because I spent a lot of time in different institutions, as you know. Do you know what I mean? And then I went to jail for something. I got a few years for a serious crime, and that was in 87. And when I came out that was at the beginning of 87, I came out in the middle of 89, and the rave scene had kicked off.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's
but
what.
In that 2.5 years I'd been away, I'd really like worked on myself. Yeah, I still didn't know I was an addict.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I still didn't know anything about addiction. But I'd really like worked on myself, and I was really like mindful of the books I was reading, and I was always into the health thing. Like, I always was into the gym and stuff like that. And I really thought I had it sussed, you know, like I weren't going to do this. And substances weren't even in my head. I weren't, you know, I'd have a spliff now and again. This is what I was thinking. But I really had like a plan for the rest of my life. Do you know what I mean? I was going to be successful. I was going to, you know, I was going to do this. I was going to do that. And then I got out in the rave scene, and people who I knew were enemies, like before I went to jail, I seen them in nightclubs like, I love you, mate. You know, like, this is what the ecstasy was doing to them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was the summer of love. Summer of love, that's the way to say it.
But did you come out, start taking them and get all lovey-dovey
Not
as well?
at first.
Right.
Not at first. I started selling them.
Right, okay.
I started selling them, and then I started putting small raves on. Yeah. Like we'd knock 2 flats into one. Me and the people in my area. Do you know what I mean? But I was more into the money at that point. Do you know what I mean? So we'd have people out on the checks doing fraud, getting the cigarettes and the alcohol, getting cash backs. We'd be out robbing ourselves that day, and then on the night time we'd be selling ecstasy, cannabis, and speed and charging people in And when they got in, they'd be buying our fags and our drinks. So it was all about the money. Do you know what I mean? It was all about the money in them days for a short period of time until I started taking the ecstasy. And I remember once I started taking it, I didn't stop. You know, like when people would stop in the week and go home, I wouldn't. I remember my cousin Stretch, he had this brand new Golf and he had to sign on. He had to sign on at a police station, but he weren't a legal driver, right? And because he didn't want to pull up outside, get out and go in and sign on, yeah? And we're all sitting in his mum's house, in Jill's house. There's about, I don't know, there's about 10 of us, 12 of us, all cousins. It was a Tuesday night, I'll never forget it. And I've had a knee, but no one else has. And I haven't said it. I haven't said anything to anyone. And he's gone, oh, I've got to sign on. He's looking at the clock, I've got to sign on. I said, I'll drive. And he didn't know. So he went, yeah, come on then. So we drove down, and on the way back, it feels like I'm in a spaceship. Do you know what I mean? Like the E's really kicked in.
It's really
like,
coming up.
It's a brand new Golf. It's really like smooth ride. Do you know what I mean? When we got back, a few of my cousins were saying, "Did you like it? Was it a good car?" Because he wouldn't let no one drive it religiously. He was really like proud of it. Do you know what I mean? And I went, "Yeah." I said, "That fucking E kicked in just as excuse my language. That E kicked in." Just as I was driving it, and Stretch looked at me like, well, you won't be driving it again. Yeah. But the point of that I'm making is, even on a Tuesday night, I would take an E.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the substance. I just couldn't, I always wanted more.
Yeah.
I just didn't know when to stop.
Yeah.
And it was around that time I ended a relationship with a girl that I'd been in a relationship with her for about 5 or 6 years, and I was only 21, nearly 22, and we'd been together since we were 15. Mm-hmm. And in that time she'd visited me in children's homes, young offenders institutions up and down the country. Mm-hmm. Like a really good girl. She'd save her pocket money up to buy stamps for me to make sure that she could write to me, you know, when I was in children's homes.
Okay.
And when I got out, I ended the relationship because my ego took over. I was getting a bit of attention. Right. I was being quite successful in that world. Yeah. And I was getting a bit of attention. And I ended up meeting up with this girl. And she was already into heroin. I didn't know it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
She didn't have a habit with it, but she'd already experimented with it.
Yeah.
And then, and me being me, once I tried it, do you know what I mean? I was taking it every day. And because I was earning money, it was easy. I could get a lot of it, do you know what I mean? And
when did you know that you had a habit? Because I remember that time. I can remember it clearly. When did you know?
With the glue,
right?
I stopped it like that.
Yeah.
When I went to prison after, like when I was experimenting with speed and stuff like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know what I mentioned about. I'd stop it and I wouldn't think about it. I'd never ask for it to be brought up to the prison. I'd get a bit of draw in the prison. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I always had draw brought up by my family and friends. Mm-hmm. That's cannabis, obviously, for those that don't know. When I got into the heroin, I remember crying because I was injecting it really quickly. I started injecting it really quickly. Wow. Yeah.
Was that introduced by this girl?
No.
How did that happen? How did that come
I wanted to. I was like seeking more. And I'd be there like with designer clothes on and with blood stains on them. Do you know what I mean? Like still trying to look good on the outside.
Yeah.
And I remember when I really knew that I was in trouble, like I got a DVT in my leg. And this was in a very short space of time.
Right.
You know, like this was within a year. All this, you hear about people.
Yeah, it's normally years before people are starting to get DVTs and stuff. Yeah.
And I was injecting other things then as well, like it weren't enough to just have good heroin. I wanted to put sleepers in with it, like the temazepams. I wanted to put the Diconol in with it. Do you know what I mean?
Jesus.
I think everyone said I had a death wish.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Everyone said I had. And then even in my behaviours, when I stopped taking, because there'd be periods of time when I'd go to jail and stop taking heroin and just focus on the gym, because I didn't understand about this part of it. I thought it was like, I didn't know it was an inside job. And when, like, even in my behaviours, because you know some of the consequences I've had in my life with my injuries, that's as a consequence of my behaviours. And people would say, like, he's got a death wish, what's he doing that for? Do you know what I mean? But it showed up in my early drug using with the heroin and that, like, I hadn't dealt with all that stuff. I had no courage to talk, or no outlet to talk about the early childhood trauma that I carried with me.
Yeah.
You know, and being totally confused.
Yeah.
I grew up like listening to people, them adults, the things they used to, you know, they say, don't they, you give someone a child from the age of 0 to 7 and that creates the man.
I'll show you the adult, yeah.
And what I grew up listening to about me from in them early childhood years formed the way I looked at myself.
Right.
It weren't until for the last 4.5, 5 years of going through here and then carrying on some certain stuff that I constantly work on changing the way I look at myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And that's, you know what I think of Broadway Lodge, you know, Miracle Mansion. I got nothing but love for it. And I recommend it to people when they get in touch with me. I was on the phone to you the other day when you was in Ibiza.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's my first, because I know how it benefited me, you know.
So just tell me about this insane drug use, because that's all, you know, when I remember you here, obviously, because of some of the health issues.
The consequences.
The consequences that you had, and obviously when you used to share in group and stuff. So how did you get to Broadway Lodge? Tell me about what.
So that carried on. That carried on with that kind of drug use. And my dad would say to me, like, David, you need to go to rehab. My dad did what he did and earned what he earned, but he always loved his family, David, you need to go to rehab. And he would try many things to help me, you know. He was always there for me, like when we built a relationship up, when he stopped going to prison and
doing what he was doing.
He changed direction and, you know, he was earning a lot of money and, you know, he's able to stay out and be present for his family.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's the thing. And he used to say to me, he used to break his heart, man. Because he had a lot of respect, do you know what I mean? And what my behaviours, because I had a lot of respect. I had a lot of respect in that world, you know, like, and there's been times where I've managed to get that back by abstaining, but not working on myself. And ultimately I would end up using again and just throw it all away again.
Yeah, and lose that respect again, because heroin is just one thing that just ain't respected, is it?
No, nor crack.
Yeah.
Like, I know some people in that world that dabble with crack, but I couldn't dabble with anything. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I had to go all in. So that was like, I'd go to jail, I'd get clean, I'd just smoke dope, cannabis, I'd come out, I'd be fit, I'd be healthy, I'd be earning money again, you know, I'd have a nice car, I'd have a nice girlfriend, things would be going great, you know. And then it could be a good day, it could be a bad day, and I'd make a poor decision about let's go and get a pipe, do you know what I mean? I know what will make this better. Because crack came in, oh mate, when crack came into the equation, all bets were off.
Okay.
Like, that's when, like, it really looked like I had a death wish.
Okay. Tell me about it. Tell me a little bit more.
Well, the things I was doing, like robbing dealers, some of the things I did, I'm quite ashamed of, because I robbed people that were good to me, you know, dealers. But because they had a lot of drugs or a lot of money, and that's I'm quite ashamed of that. Yeah, like, there's some things I'm not ashamed of, but I am quite ashamed of that. I robbed people that, had I been thinking normally, like, I would never have thought about robbing them. Do you know what I mean? Because I respected them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I didn't understand then that I was dealing with something more powerful than me, which was addiction. I only, like, once that came in, like, just get the drugs. And then it got to the point where I didn't have the bottle to go shoplifting, so I've got to keep that balance. And you know, I'm not going to sit here and make out that I'm anything. You know, I'm an addict who went to any lengths to get what he wanted. And at the end, I was in the Salvation Army. And my brother got clean through rehab about 7 years ago, and he's got a fantastic life. He's got 4 kids. He's studying criminal psychology. He's worked as a support worker in rehabs. He's worked as a manager of a community-based rehab. He's got a fantastic life. When I was in the Salvation Army and he knew I was going into rehab, because I wanted to change for a long time, but I understood the counselling side of it. I was going to have to open them old wounds. Yeah. And I didn't have the courage. Right. I wanted to change, but I didn't have the courage to change.
Right, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Do you think now, looking back, that the death wish, was linked to the House of Horrors?
And like, there was adults there that knew.
Yeah.
Yeah? There was adults there that knew. And when they used to say to me as I got older, oh, you got to stop doing this, and I used to look at them and think, you fucking, I know. Yeah. That you know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah. But I think the death wish came from there.
Yeah.
You know, like that. And I couldn't tell my dad.
Yeah.
You know, that's another thing, like, my dad, because I love my dad, man. I love my dad so much. And I couldn't tell him why I was doing what I was doing. Yeah. I'm not saying that I'm an addict because of that happened, but I know I wanted to stop years ago. So had that not happened, I know I used on them thoughts and feelings. Definitely. And had that not happened, I believe that I'd have been able to have stopped after I'd experimented with it. It got messy. Yeah. And then I would have thought, no, that ain't for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I had to use prison to clean up, I think I could have done it that way. Yeah. And then stayed in the circles that didn't do it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But
so the insane substance misuse was a way of kind of masking a pain that
I couldn't talk about.
You couldn't talk about. Yeah,
that's a good way to put it, actually. And so when I was coming to rehab, going back to the Salvation Army, because I ended up in the Salvation Army, I had leg ulcers, I had hepatitis C.
I want to talk about those leg ulcers as well later on.
Because I know what you did here.
Yeah.
Like, I say it to people now, what you did.
Yeah, as a result.
Dignity.
Yeah, 100%. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. And that's another thing what reinforces to me how great a place this is. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I've said that to people. You know, I've said that in shares, when I've done shares here. Yeah. You know, look, if you're struggling or you're questioning this place, you don't know what you've got here. This is what it's about. You know what I mean? And I'll throw that in there. Yeah. But so going back again, Marcus, so I was in and out of jail all my life. I was in and out of substances all my life, and I wanted to stop for a long time. At the end, like the last it was like a little bit was getting chipped out of me every time it was happening. And it was breaking my spirit. Do you know what I mean? I've always prided myself on having a strong spirit. Yeah. I don't know if it's because it's Celtic blood. I don't know what it is. But I know. And people who know me have always said it. You came to the convention with me and you said, like, you've seen certain things.
See it,
Do you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And I've always had that.
Yeah.
You know? But at the end, like the last 8 or 10 years, man, I'll give you something, man. My niece, one of my nieces, she used to come down the homeless hostel to see me with my sister. One of my sisters passed away, That broke my heart because I couldn't be there for her the way I would usually have been there for her. My sister Lisa, She was that girl that always whenever I went to prison, my clothes would stay there.
Yeah.
She'd write to me. I'd write to her. I was always that brother that she could talk to. And like,
she was a constant in your life.
And I always protected her from anything that I went through. Yeah.
Okay.
I was like a father figure to her, because we've got different dads.
Yeah, yeah.
I was a father figure to her. But the time she needed me most, I weren't there for her. And that kind of broke me, you know, like that shame and not being there for the person I love most in the world, as well as my children.
Yeah.
Because when my children were born, I was getting lost in addiction badly. So, and as an addict, I didn't build up that bond and relationship with them that me and my sister had built up from early childhood.
Yeah.
I've got a lovely relationship with one of my sons now, though, Jimmy. But going back to my outside that homeless hostel, my son used to come and see me there as well, and I used to say to him, Jim, I'm going to do this, you know. I'm going to get clean, and you're going to see your dad for who he is. You've spoke to my son, you've been on the phone to him. Remember you FaceTime? Yeah. And he used to say to me, I believe you, Dad, I believe you. I said, honestly, Jim, he used to come and see me at the homeless hostel, man. And
that must have been heartbreaking, though, brother. Looking back at that now.
Yeah, like if you could have seen me before, this is what I was thinking. If you could have seen me before, do you know what I mean? And that gave me strength to want to change even more, because the wheels were already in motion to go to rehab.
Yeah, they must have wanted to get you out of Coventry them times there.
Yeah, no, they did. Yeah, it saved them a lot of money. That investment to put me in rehab saved them a lot of money with the judicial system, with the healthcare.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah,
everything.
All across the board. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my niece used to come and bring me food down there on a Sunday dinner with my sister. And when she used to drive away, she was about 13, 14. And when she used to drive away, she'd look over the back seat, and I used to see my niece's face, and it used to break my heart. I used to think, she ain't going to just know me like this, man. She ain't just going to remember me like this. She's 18 now. She's working. She's a forklift driver.
Go on, get in there.
She's got her own flat.
Equal opportunities and all that.
Of course, mate. Come down here to visit me.
Yeah.
Every time I go up there, I go up and see them. Do you know what I mean? Which is quite often.
Cool. I know you're always repping for Coventry, I'm not going to lie.
Well, you know what I say when I'm in the meetings up there as well, Marcus? I always say, like, this is where I cause the harms. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is where I caused the harms. This is where my amends process has got to take place. I understand I'm making amends on a daily basis by being a productive member of society.
Yeah.
However, the individual and personal amends, I've got to make them in Coventry.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if I get messages from parents. I've never met their children, but because the parents know how bad it was for me and how bad I created it for me, you know. And then the changes that have occurred.
You've made, 100%.
They reach out to me, do you know what I mean, quite often. And it's a good feeling, man.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a good feeling. But yeah, so my niece, I took her to a meeting recently. We went to a meeting in Weston, and I said, blah, 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 I'm David, I'm an addict. I just want to say, this is my niece. She used to bring food to me at the homeless hostel, and she's sitting there like looking at me. And halfway through it broke my, like, give me a little feeling. She went, "I love you so much." She's a tomboy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's just great. She's good stuff, man. But yeah, like, I go and see my family all the time, and they're so proud of me. Do you know what I mean? They're just so proud of me, and none of it was possible without coming here. I want to tell you a story about Broadway Lodge, yeah? Sorry for pointing.
No.
I want to tell you a story about Broadway Lodge, because at that time that I came here, the contract was with a rehab in Manchester.
Right,
yeah?
okay.
The main contact, like most people from Coventry went to Manchester. Okay. And you met this guy as well. You met him at the convention when he drove down from Manchester to come and see us. Remember the big guy, Scott?
Oh, yeah, when we was at Birmingham. Yeah.
So he went up to Manchester before me. Now, Scott's someone I used with. I went to jail with him. I did other things with him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
His using got nearly as messy as mine. Yeah. And he left the homeless hostel that we were in, and he went to Manchester and got clean. Mm-hmm. Then he came back. to the homeless hostel and said, like, Dave, fucking hell, man, come on. The wheels are in motion now.
Already, yeah.
You know, it's a process, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
I've got to keep appointments. I've got to show a level of willingness and all that.
Got to jump through enough hoops.
Whatever, innit? To show they're going to make the investment.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I went, Scott, the wheels are in motion, blah, blah, blah. But then I thought to myself, I want to make changes. And I don't want to be... I love Scott. He knows I love him. Do you know what I mean? But I don't want to be listening to how it used to be for me. Because I would be listening to war stories that would feed my ego. I would be I needed to speak to counsellors and to get rid of all that stuff that I just spoke about quite openly now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that wouldn't have had an opportunity up there, but I just didn't want to be around people I knew at that time I was doing that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can understand.
And so they gave me some options about where to go, and they said, there's a few treatment centres in Weston-super-Mare. And they said this one, they said that one, and when they said this one, I went, I will go to that one.
Why?
It's a 12-step treatment centre, excuse me, the 12 steps. My brother did the 12 steps.
Right,
yeah?
okay.
And my support worker said, Dave, in Salvation Army, Liz, good stuff, Liz is. She went, Dave, you ain't going to do the 12 steps. It's about God. I said, Liz, I'm going to do the 12 steps. Yeah. It's about a higher power. It's a power greater than me. I know it exists, you know what I mean? But because of the image that she had of me, she didn't think that I could have that kind of belief. Do you know what I mean? And because of all that, does that make sense?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Because of the reputation that I built up in the city.
Yeah.
Like, they would never associate me with having that kind of thinking. Do you know what I mean? And so there was a number of factors. Once it was a 12-step place. 2, it was away from everyone I knew. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my brother says to me when he knew I was going in, he went, Dave, it'll be the hardest thing you've ever done. It'll be the most scariest thing you've ever done. And it'll be the best thing you've ever done in your life. And he was right on all 3 counts.
Trust me.
It was scary, it was hard, and it's been the best thing I've ever done in my life.
Absolutely. I would concur with that. Tell me about your journey whilst you was here, because Jesus Christ, bro, you was hard work, bro. You was hard work.
I pulled up in a taxi outside. I had leg ulcers that I was self-obsessed about. They were stinking because obviously being in the homeless hostel, I wasn't taking care of them. I was addicted to methadone. I was doing 12 snowballs a day. I was drinking alcohol.
You was in a bad way, bro. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. You was in a bad way, but it was the leg ulcers that were the
people couldn't sit in group with me.
Yeah.
People couldn't sit in group with me. When this is coming to that thing about the new rooms you've got here now, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I went into a room, and the nursing staff here were fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Amazing. And I was going out.
Drink some of your tea, bro.
I was going out to the doctors.
Because I remember you were having your legs dressed regularly and constantly, and you always used to complain that they were smelling and how embarrassed you was, and you didn't want to share a room. But them times we didn't have
the facilities.
we didn't have single rooms, and we kind of used to just say to people that they had to share, and people had to
put up with it.
And have some understanding and some compassion. But I remember it was a constant thing for you about you was embarrassed and that people had to smell it, and you could smell it. And I always remember, I don't know, it stuck. That probably was the biggest thing that stuck with me about making sure that when we ever got the opportunity that we would have single rooms, because of what you went through, the lack of dignity that you had because of the leg ulcers. And I just and so when we started doing the refurb here, that was like the top of the list, and I was insistent about it because of what you went through.
And I remember you telling me that when the refurb started.
Yeah.
I remember we was at a barbecue at one of our friends' clean time birthdays or belly button birthdays.
Yeah, one of the two. Anyway. Yeah.
And I remember us having this conversation then, and it impressed me. I thought he remembered, because when I was in group, like some deep stuff would be getting spoken about, and at that, we know how this process works. Like people become peers, become senior peers, and all of that,
and house leader and all that kind of stuff.
So then it's like the new person coming in who's scared. This person who's like a few months in, who's got a little bit more knowledge, and they can identify. But I was that self-obsessed. I'd be sitting in group on occasions. I've got to say, not all the time, but on occasions I'd be sitting in group and that would just be on my mind because I think I can smell it.
Yeah.
I think he can smell it. I think she can smell it. I'm thinking, what's she thinking? Do you know what I mean? And it just consumed me. And
so I never. Obviously, I never actually ever really gave it any thought until one day you spoke to me about, the shame that you felt around it, and it was just like. But we'd been convincing, people had just had to go, it was shared rooms. There was no thought of your process and and there was no thought of obviously the obsession around the shame and the shame you was experiencing because of your ulcers. Yeah.
I remember saying to, before I come here, about 15 years, because I had them ulcers for a long time. And I remember speaking to someone I don't know if it was a nurse, I can't remember, but I was speaking to someone and I said how it affected me in public. This was out in the community, where I was on a Subutex script. I was trying to look after myself. I was in a relationship, I was going to get it dressed 3 times a week. I was doing everything that was suggested. I'd do everything that was necessary. And it was still consuming me then. Yeah. It was still consuming me then. But it's not like that today.
How are the legs these days?
That one's healed completely, and that one's healing immensely.
Cool. How long's it been since you was here?
4.5 years.
Yeah. So these are the kind of the consequences.
Yeah. And this is another thing about here, with the H and I, from the fellowships. When I was here, this is one of the things that gave me hope. I've seen people coming in with similar consequences or worse consequences, and they were clean. They've been clean 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. They got their lives together. They got kids and relationships and working and doing this, and I'm thinking, how can you? That's amazing. But it gave me so much hope.
Yeah.
And another thing, because I never knew anyone who came from the same background as me. Similarities, yeah. But I didn't know anyone who had it like that. Yeah. I didn't know anyone who did the things I did. Yeah. I didn't know this was going on in my head. You didn't live like me. You didn't do that like I did. That hadn't happened to you like that happened to me. You haven't been shot. You haven't been stabbed. You haven't done this. You haven't. Then I came here and I met Big John.
Yeah.
A support worker. Yeah. A support worker who I could identify so much with, but then I couldn't identify so much with, and thought, you better just keep your fucking mouth shut, Dave. You're out your league here, Dave.
Yeah. But there was a lot more similarities than differences.
Yeah. But what I mean is, like, he's like, there's so many similarities and extremes, but his are even more extreme. I'm
weren't
like,
they?
whoa, you know what I mean?
Weren't they?
Like, that's my dad's level, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what's been going on since you left? So you left 4.5.
So I left here about.
Do you know what? When you said 4.5 years ago, do you know what? It feels much longer than that. I'm not going to lie.
Is it?
Yeah, it feels much longer than that. Yeah.
It don't feel like that to me because I love coming here, don't I? I've always kept my foot in the door with shares, with the aftercare.
Aftercare.
Do you know what I mean? Broadway's always still been a part of me. You know what I mean? Part of my journey.
Yeah.
So what's gone on since I left here? So I left here, I had my 50th birthday here.
Yeah.
First time in how many other decades that I was clean. I had it here. I got all emotional, got did a little gratitude speech. Do you know what I mean? All the other girls in the house got emotional. A few of the lads got a bit choked up. So I left here, no life skills. I've never had a job in my life, and didn't know what I was going to do. Didn't know what my skills were, what my assets were, outside of crime. I didn't know. Do you know what I mean? I'm told I've got to change all my thinking, my whole outlook, change my playmates, change my playground, change my playthings if I want to be successful in recovery. Are we willing to do anything? I don't want to use drugs again. Do you know what I mean? So the first thing I got into, it was all right as well, was network marketing.
Okay.
And I had some amazing experiences within that. You know, I learned a lot about myself within that. I read the book. I read a book called The Secret.
Oh, right, yeah.
Down in secondary here.
Yeah.
And how that came about, I went from here to get my first smartphone. When I was in secondary, I never had a smartphone prior to being here. And when I was in secondary, we was allowed out. Go and get yourself a phone if you want, build relationships up in the community, take some responsibility now, just small steps. And so I bought a smartphone. The first thing I seen on YouTube was Oprah Winfrey talking about this book called The Secret. And one of the things she said was, if it's your first time of hearing about it, then it's your turn to read it. And I thought that seems really interesting. Went out in the garden to have a fag, and my cousin Michelle phoned me. Oh, David, we're so proud of you. I've told this story so many times, but it's a big story, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to hear it.
5 minutes ago, Oprah Winfrey said that, if this is your first time of hearing about it, gone in the garden, Michelle phoned me, David, we're so proud of you. Auntie Annie thought you were going to die. We all thought you were nearly dead. You've been clean 3 months now. Please just keep it up when you leave there. We know you're going to be leaving there. Oh, listen, Philip's give me this book to read. You might like it. It's called The Secret. I went, Michelle, I've just seen Oprah Winfrey talking about it. Then we had a little conversation about it. She said, it's amazing. It's about changing your thoughts and writing gratitude lists and, you know, be positive and no matter how you're feeling, always be positive. I went, okay, that sounds great. I'm going to have a look at it. My brother Phil phones straight after. As soon as Michelle put the phone down, my brother Phil picked the phone up. Almost word for word what Michelle has said about the proud of you. You know, that we thought you were going to die. We're so proud of you, Dave. You made us all happy. Keep doing it, Dave. You deserve a lot better. Dave, I know you're quite spiritual. These are my brother's words. Yeah. I know you're quite spiritual, Dave. I've just got this book called The Secret. I went, oh, fuck off. I said, I've just heard about this 3 times, Phil. Yeah. I said, I've seen Oprah Winfrey talking about it on YouTube. I said, oh, Michelle's just phoned us. And now you... And he went, Dave, honestly, I just knew I had to get the book. Do you know what I mean? So I got the book. That's when I became aware of who Bob Proctor is. Well, was, because God bless him, he's passed away now. So I started following Bob Proctor on YouTube, just watching his positive videos every day, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sitting outside Costa, about 18 months after leaving here, Costa on the high street.
What, in Weston?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get an opportunity to go into business with Bob Proctor's wife, network marketing. I started stuttering because when the person was talking to me, I was thinking, this is a fucking sales pitch. Do you know what I mean? That cynical, that sceptical kind of thinking. I thought this is, and he went, yeah. I said, so I was asking him some questions, and he mentioned Linda Proctor, and I went, how do I get into it? How do I get into it? Because I'd started connecting the dots, you know, I could see. It's all law of attraction stuff. And I got into it, and within a few months I was in Germany on stage with Bob Proctor. Do you know what I mean?
Good, Dave.
Yeah.
Good.
So that was the start of that. And then I got into it, and I became quite good at it, Marcus, because I started to find out that I'm good with people. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
That you've said yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
So, and then when when you're doing something good for real reasons, it's so easy to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's no like...
It's not hard work.
Nah, it's not.
hard
And
work.
it's something I loved and something I enjoyed.
Passionate about.
Yeah. But I got into a relationship, and part of being on that network marketing was connecting with people on social media. I got into a relationship, and the person who got into a relationship thought that I had ulterior motives when I was connecting with people on social media.
Yeah.
And so I put the relationship before the network marketing.
Okay.
And I think with hindsight, it was a poor decision.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Well, I know it was a poor decision on my part. So then I just started applying for jobs. Do you know what I mean? I just started applying for all different jobs. But the jobs I was applying for, I wanted to know that I was giving back as well. Obviously, we need a wage to live, don't we? But I wanted to know that I was identifying with people whose situations I'd been in. So I was applying for mental health jobs, carers like support workers. I was applying for rehab jobs. And I was getting so far in the process. Like, I'd present well on the interview. I'd be transparent about my DBS, saying it's an extensive DBS, and they'd say what's on it, and I'd say everything except Section 1 offences. So no rape, no racial aggravated offences, no arson, nothing against children or vulnerable adults. But there's a lot of other stuff on there.
Yeah.
And so they'd be like, okay, that's fine, as long as there's no type of them offences, then, you know, that we ain't got a problem. And thank you for your honesty, this is what they always said. And I'd get right into it. Then there was even a case where I had personal safety training at one of the hospitals, at the mental hospital. And but when my DBS finally came on the day I was starting, they went, we can't, it's been too early. Like, I was only 2 years since my last offence, you know what I mean? So I just kept plugging away, and then I'd get an opportunity to work in a rehab, which was the first job I had. Yeah. And I worked in a rehab for about 20 months, which was very challenging, but very rewarding. And they're an amazing team, the people that in that rehab. Shout out to Sefton Park. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because they're a good
honourable mention to Sefton Park. Yeah.
Some good people work there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
A good place.
Yeah.
Good establishment, good people.
But it's very, for me, personally, I found it, I couldn't separate, on occasions, I couldn't separate home life with work, and I couldn't separate work with home life. Yeah. I couldn't get that.
The balance, right?
Yeah. Like, it wasn't always like that, but on occasions it was. I mean, like, you know, I've spoke about my family, and there's somewhere in the family there's always something going on, and sometimes it affects me. You know, like my brothers, one of them, I'm going to visit him on Thursday. Do you know what I mean? A close brother of mine. I'm going to visit him on Thursday. When that was going on with him, that was affecting me, and I was bringing that into work. Serious crime, he's doing a long time in prison. Another brother just got found not guilty for a very serious crime, and that was affecting me. So when I say I couldn't separate home life from work, these are the things that were affecting me, and I was allowing it to affect me while I was at work. Okay. But at the moment now, I am working with people with autism on 20 hours a week, which is, I don't have to give out medication. Yeah. So it's more like person-centred stuff. I don't have to give out medication. It's supporting them, and I'm all right doing that. Do you know what I mean? There's like less responsibility for me than there was when I worked in a rehab, because I was giving out a lot of medications as well, which I didn't enjoy that part of it. I've been invited to college to talk to people about guns and gangs and knife crime, and addiction. I'll be doing that next month. I've did podcasts. This is the third podcast I've done.
David, I love you. You know, I'm very, very proud of you. I've watched your development since you've gone here. We've been places, we've been out together, we still go places. Obviously, like I said to you, I was inspired by, I imagine that your ulcers inspired me to make sure that when we did some refurbishments, that nobody would ever go through what you went through. And that is, you know, and I'll say that to you, and I will say that to you until I'm dead. That was your ulcers were, it's mad, an inspiration, because, you know, obviously the shame that you went through. I don't want other people to experience that. And, you know,
but I love that, you know, like I love that's a reflection on you and on Broadway, that you can see someone go through that and keep the ethos of the whole centre and what this is about. Do you know what I mean? It's not just like about getting a few quid and it ain't. It's not. It's
not.
If it was, I'll be the first to let you know.
Yeah,
you know,
I know that.
I'll be the first to let you know that I think that.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I know that.
Yeah.
I love what you said downstairs in the kitchen as we was making a cup of coffee. That because I was saying, you walked in, you said, "Mark, it's changed here. It feels so different." And I was saying to you, it had to change. There was so much that we had to change, and it's obviously we've added the compassion focus element to it. Obviously, we're still 12-step as the foundation, and that will never change. You know,
but you know, like, sorry to interrupt you, because the 12-step as the foundation, it's an introduction to the 12 steps and to know that they work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where my experience was, it didn't get rammed down our throat, because I focused, when I was here, most of my focus was on sorting my health out and sorting that internal trauma out.
Yeah,
Do you know
definitely.
what I mean? And knowing that I was in a safe place to do that.
Yeah.
And I felt that when I was here.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that, because sometimes there's a misconception about, 12-step treatment centres, and, as much as, 12 steps our foundation, what we do is counselling and psychotherapy, and we work through, if you've got some health issues, we're going to, because, if we don't sort your health out, you're dead.
That's right.
You're going to go back to using. Yeah. So if we don't sort your health out, if we don't sort your physical stuff out, which is what, and I will say an honourable shout out to our wonderful nurses here at that.
I love them.
They're amazing. Yeah.
When I first came here, I'm glad you touched on that. You asked me about my experience while I was here.
Yeah.
I was that full of fear. Yeah, because I had it all going on in my head about what I'm going to have to open up and talk about. I was that self-conscious. About my leg ulcers, and I had a Hep C. I had other health issues as well. It wasn't just
forgot all about that.
Just a leg ulcer. I was at death's door.
Yeah, I know, man. You weren't, brother. You weren't well, brother. You weren't well.
And I was on all kinds of medication and drugs and everything. And I got here, and one of the nurses, she must have seen the fear in my face. And she just come up to me, as smelly as I was, like, come from a homeless hospital. She come up to me and give me a hug and said, "What's up with you? We love you." I thought, fucking hell. It just blew me away. Do you know what I mean? So definitely shout out to the nursing staff. Definitely shout out to the finance staff. Shout out to the cleaning staff, Jenny and all the girls. And
she's retired now, believe it.
Oh,
yeah. But we got to tell the truth. We got three new cleaners. Our cleaning and maintenance team, and them three are off the hook.
Is Aga still here?
Yeah, she's still down.
Shout out to Aga.
Yeah. So
I'm not going to go through them all individually.
But there's a few people that obviously get an honourable
kitchen staff.
Yeah, Matt's still here. Yeah. We stay. Do you know what? I got to go back to what you just said about that person giving you a hug, and we love you, because that's what we do here. And when we say it, we actually mean it. Because the one thing that we want people to experience here is love. And
I can tell you, from someone who knows what it's like to not experience love. Yeah. And I have experienced love, especially from my family.
Yeah, but I know what you mean.
Right, but I want to make that clear, do you know what I mean? Don't want no lines to be blurred. But I've also had periods in my life where I know what it's like to not experience love.
Trust me, I've been there.
I know. We've spoke.
Yeah.
We've spoken in group when we've helped other people, do you know what I mean? We identified, didn't we? What you've just said there about the love, it's here, man. It's here in abundance. And my motive, I ain't there's no payoff for me here to do this. This is out of love that I'm doing this.
Yeah,
love
absolutely.
for the place that showed me so much love. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And want the person that's coming in next to receive that love.
Exactly.
And if they see this on Spotify or YouTube, and it may help the next person who's doing a bit of research of where to go. Do you know what I mean?
And the wickedest thing though, Dave, is that most people come into rehab. They don't understand. They think they understand, because you don't understand why you're coming to rehab. You just think, oh, it's just about addiction. You know, you're going to come in, we're going to deal with your drug and alcohol use, and you got some healthcare problems, but it's just so much more.
There's layers.
Oh, bruv, there's just so much more of it than that.
And the thing is as well, because not everyone who's an addict has the same life experiences.
Yeah.
My friend who was here, I'm not going to say his name in case I break his anonymity.
Okay.
Came here the same day as me, same day as me, and you'll know as soon as I do his accent. And he used to say to me, "David, old chap, how the devil are you?" Half my age, he should have been on that show, Made in Chelsea.
Yeah.
Big flowing blonde ginger locks.
God bless him.
God bless him.
Bless
but our lives couldn't be so different.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Our lives couldn't be so different. Every time I speak about that guy, he makes me laugh. I've shared about it, but I won't break his anonymity, obviously, even in shares.
But that's the beauty of coming to one of these places where you come here and you meet people from just a different, people that you probably may never have met up with, but you come here and you just share this beautiful experience of everybody just trying to get through this thing.
I was here, one of my other friends who I made while I was here, ex-Premiership footballer. You know, we became good friends as well. People from different countries who were here. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
so and the common denominator was we was all addicts.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of it. And that's the beauty of kind of coming together. But what I love about here is when we come together and when we get that the magic right, nobody that comes through here won't feel the love from here. You know, and if that's what they will, you know, don't get me wrong, they will look at their addiction and they will look at some of the trauma and they will look at their trauma and work through some stuff. You know, as you say, you get an introduction to how the 12 steps and the process and how it works and the higher power of God and all that kind of stuff. But most importantly, if they hadn't felt love for a long time, they would definitely have felt love coming through this place, even though, and we was talking about transformations downstairs, weren't we? We were saying that if places don't change,
because nothing stays static, does it?
Nothing stays the same.
And another book that I read here from Tony, shout out to Tony the counsellor. He gave me a book called Conversations with God. I know you've read it. I know you've read it.
Yeah.
And I've recommended that to family members, you know what I mean? Because I've got a lot from that book.
Yeah.
And it talks about energy.
Yeah.
You know, like energy, and we're all just made up of energy. And we never stay the same. I ain't the same man today as I was yesterday.
Yes, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I'm going to be a different person, slightly different person again tomorrow.
Exactly.
And that's the same. Like, there's nothing in life that stays the same. It's constantly moving. It's either moving forward or backwards. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And I can see the difference here when I walk through the door. And a reflection of that is, you know, because me and you can sit here and say this, but when I walked through the door and I was talking to the guys outside, they were all saying about, one of them said, I was in jail with you, mate.
I could figure out who it is straight away. Yeah.
We was in your, were we? Do you know so-and-so? I said, yes, mate. But anyway, and a couple of the guys were saying they've got a good house.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's how
It's
you
lovely.
know.
Trust me, it's lovely.
That's how you know.
It's lovely.
You can feel it when you come through. I've been up here recently and did a share.
Yeah, it's lovely.
And
So David, honestly, bro, I love you and thank you for coming up and thank you for sharing your experiences and thank you for sharing some of the stuff that you've shared here. It will help other people to know that whatever you've been through, no matter how bad it is, if you've, if it has led you to addiction, or if whatever it is, come and spend some time with us, because we will help. We will help to figure it out. We'll help to sort it out. We'll help you to find a new way, find a new path to live. And then you'll go on and live certainly you'll have a wonderful experience of coming through here. That's a cast iron guarantee. And the second is we'll give you a blueprint for life, and then it's down to you.
And the thing is, that's exactly right what you said, and it never stops being a part of your life. You go through Broadway, they're there for you as long as you need them for. In the aftercare department. Well, we call it
the fifth emergency service for addiction, because no matter what, we're open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and that goes out to anybody. If you're struggling and you've come through Broadway Lodge, if you phone Broadway Lodge and you're struggling, doesn't matter what day or hour of the night, somebody's going to pick up the phone and speak to you and try and help you, because that's just how we roll around here.
And it's a lovely thing, man.
It's lovely. Brother, God bless you. I love you. Thank you for coming in and chopping it up with me. And
it's been a pleasure.